The city glittered below, a sprawling galaxy of indifferent lights. From the penthouse of the opulent Elysian, Manhattan was a silent film, its chaos muted by triple-paned glass. But inside the panoramic private dining room, a storm was breaking. Every eye was fixed on the crimson numbers flashing across a massive, wall-mounted screen. $3 billion. A number so vast it had ceased to represent money and had become a symbol of absolute power, a digital kingdom on the verge of annihilation. The transfer, a culmination of a 5-year hostile takeover, had stalled. The progress bar, a slender thread of hope, was frozen at 99%. And with each passing second, the silence in the room grew heavier, more menacing. At the head of the long, polished mahogany table sat Kwon Jin-woo, his handsome face a mask of controlled fury. At 33, he commanded an empire that straddled the legitimate and the illicit with terrifying ease. His tailored suit was the color of midnight, his stillness a stark contrast to the burgeoning panic around him. Beside him, Min-jun, his chief technology officer, was sweating, his own expensive suit suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. 1, 2, 3. His fingers flew across a holographic keyboard, his face pale, bathed in the demonic red glow of the error messages cascading down the screen. "I don't understand," he stammered, his voice thin and reedy. "The encryption it's rewriting itself. It's a ghost. I can't trap it. I can't even trace it." Jin-woo's voice, when it came, was dangerously soft, a silken threat that cut through the tension. "You had one responsibility, Min-jun. To ensure this transaction was seamless." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The chill in his tone was more effective than any shout. The authority figure's disapproval was a palpable force, pressing down on the arrogant gatekeeper. This was not merely a financial loss. It was a declaration of war, a digital strike against the heart of his sovereignty. The ruthless master villain who had orchestrated this attack remained unseen, a phantom in the code, but their message was clear. "We can reach you. We can break you." Across the room, unnoticed by the vortex of men in tailored suits, a young woman moved with quiet efficiency. Nia, a 28-year-old waitress, refilled water glasses, her expression serene, a stark contrast to the unfolding chaos. She wore the restaurant's uniform, a simple white dress and a red vest, a splash of color in the monochrome world of power and fear, for her beauty was striking, a composition of elegant lines and intelligent eyes that saw far more than anyone in this room gave her credit for. She was a ghost of a different sort, invisible by design, her presence merely functional. But as she moved closer to the table, her steps slowed, her gaze drawn to the frantic, failing efforts of the so-called tech genius. A flicker of something, recognition, understanding, perhaps even pity, crossed her features before being swiftly suppressed. She had served these men before, listened to their boisterous claims of invincibility, their casual cruelty. She knew their world was built on a foundation of brutal strength and fragile code. And she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she held the key to its salvation, or its ruin. Nia had not always been a waitress. This life of serving overpriced wine and feigned politeness was a carefully constructed facade, a penance, and a hiding place. The feel of the starched linen napkin in her hand was a world away from the cool, metallic touch of a keyboard, a sensation that still hummed in her fingertips like a phantom limb. A flashback, sharp and unwelcome, pierced the present. She was 21 again, her face illuminated by the glow of 6 monitors in a cramped, windowless room. The code flowed from her mind to the screen, a symphony of logic and creation. She was a prodigy, the architect of a revolutionary security protocol, a system so advanced it was considered unbreakable. It was her life's work, a testament to a brilliance that burned almost too brightly. The memory soured, the image shifting to a sterile boardroom. A man with a predatory smile and empty eyes, Marcus Thorne, stood before a group of investors, her code projected behind him, his name emblazoned on every slide. He had been her mentor, the one who discovered her talent, and the one who had ruthlessly stolen it. He had taken her genius and passed it off as his own, leaving her with nothing but a severance check and a non-disclosure agreement that was as binding as iron chains. The betrayal had been absolute, a knife to the heart that had shattered her trust and her ambition. She had disappeared, burying her past so deep she almost convinced herself it was a dream. She had sought anonymity in the bustling, transient world of New York City's service industry, a place where no one looked beyond the uniform. But the ghost of her past was always there, whispering in the quiet moments, reminding her of what she had lost. Now, watching Minjun fumble and fail, a cold, calculated anger began to stir within her. The system that was crumbling before her eyes, the very encryption that was rewriting itself, she recognized its digital fingerprint. It was a bastardized, corrupted version of her own creation.
Thorn.
It had to be him. He was the master villain, the architect of this chaos, using her own weapon against this new titan of industry. The irony was a bitter pill. For years, she had dreamed of revenge, a way to reclaim what was stolen from her. She had imagined a dramatic confrontation, a public unmasking. But this was something else entirely. It was an opportunity, dropped into her lap like a gauntlet. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm. Could she do it? Could she step out of the shadows and expose herself? The risk was immense. Jinwoo was a dangerous man, the whispers of his ruthless consolidation of power legendary. His world was violent and unforgiving. To reveal her skills would be to invite scrutiny, to open a door to her past that she had fought so hard to keep sealed. And yet, the pull was irresistible. It was a chance to prove to herself that the fire within her hadn't been extinguished, that the brilliant young woman she once was still existed beneath the veneer of the quiet waitress. Her gaze met Jinwoo's across the room. His eyes, dark and piercing, swept past her without a flicker of recognition. She was invisible to him. The thought, which had once been her shield, now felt like a challenge. The tension in the room had reached its zenith. Minjun finally threw his hands up in defeat, his face a mask of sweat and despair. "It's no use," he gasped, turning to Jinwoo. "The firewall is compromised. The entire network is collapsing. We're hemorrhaging data. In 5 minutes, everything will be gone. The accounts, the infrastructure, everything." The words hung in the air, each one a hammer blow against Jinwoo's empire. His consigliere, an older, calmer man named Mr. Park, placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, but Jinwoo shrugged it off. His rage was a living thing, coiling in the pit of his stomach. He had built his organization from the ashes of his family's ruin, every success a hard-won battle. To be dismantled by a ghost in the machine was an indignity he could not bear. He stood up, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. The movement was sudden, violent, and it silenced the panicked whispers in the room. His cold, furious gaze settled on Minjun, and for a moment, it seemed as if violence was inevitable. It was in that moment of pure, distilled crisis, when all hope seemed lost, that Nia made her move. She placed the silver water pitcher she was holding onto a nearby service stand with a soft, deliberate click. The sound, though quiet, was sharp enough to cut through the oppressive silence. Every head turned towards her. She took a step forward, her posture poised, her gaze unwavering as she met Jinwoo's stare. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was overshadowed by a lifetime of suppressed ambition and a burning desire for reclamation. "I can fix it," she said. Her voice was calm, clear, and carried the weight of absolute certainty. The statement was so audacious, so utterly out of place, that for a moment, no one reacted. They simply stared at the waitress in her simple uniform, a beautiful African woman who had just uttered the impossible. Minjun was the first to break the silence, a harsh, incredulous laugh escaping his lips. "You? You can fix it?" He gestured dismissively at her, his contempt undisguised. "What are you going to do? Offer it a drink? Go back to pouring water, little girl." "The adults are busy," his words were meant to sting, to put her back in her place, but Nia didn't flinch. Her eyes remained locked on Jinwoo, the only person in the room who mattered. She saw the flicker of desperation behind his cold facade, the sliver of an opening. He was a man drowning, and she was offering him a lifeline. Would he be too proud to take it? Mr. Park, ever the pragmatist, stepped forward. What do you mean, you can fix it? Who are you? Jinwoo held up a hand, silencing them both. He studied Nia, his gaze intense, analytical. He saw past the uniform, saw the unshakable confidence in her eyes, the intelligence that radiated from her. In the cutthroat world he inhabited, confidence was a currency, and hers was pure gold. He was a man who trusted his instincts, and his instincts were telling him something extraordinary was happening. He was losing billions with every passing second. What did he have to lose by entertaining the absurd?
How?
Jinwoo's voice was a low growl, a direct challenge. He was testing her, daring her to back up her claim. The entire room held its breath, the fate of an empire hanging on the words of an unknown waitress. This was her moment, the precipice she had been unknowingly walking towards for 7 years. Nia's fingers moved with the fluid precision of a concert pianist finally returning to her instrument. The holographic interface, which had been a wall of impenetrable error messages for Minjun, became a canvas for her artistry. She didn't just type. She composed, her hands dancing across the light, weaving complex strings of code with an intuitive grace that was mesmerizing to behold. The room was utterly silent, save for the soft hum of the servers and the almost imperceptible clicks of the virtual keys. Jinwoo stood directly behind her, his powerful frame a silent, intimidating presence. He watched not just the screen, but her. He saw the intense focus in her eyes, the slight furrow of her brow as she navigated the digital labyrinth. It was the focus of a warrior, a master of her craft. He, a man who commanded armies, recognized a fellow commander in her element. Minjun watched from the side, his initial contempt morphing into a cocktail of disbelief and humiliation. She was doing the impossible, moving through his defenses, his systems, with an ease that bordered on contemptuous. She wasn't just fixing the problem, she was fundamentally rewriting the rules of the game he thought he had mastered. He had built the outer walls of this digital fortress, but he was beginning to realize, had designed the very ground it was built on. The attacker used a recursive algorithm to corrupt the primary encryption key, Nia explained, her voice steady and professional, never taking her eyes off the screen. It's designed to mimic the system's own security protocols, turning them against each other. It's an elegant design, but it has a flaw. It's too perfect. As she spoke, she isolated the rogue code, trapping it within a quarantine she constructed in seconds. It relies on a predictive pattern. It anticipates the standard response, the way someone like you, she gave a subtle, pointed glance towards Minjun, would react. But it doesn't account for an asynchronous countermeasure. Her fingers flew again, a blur of motion. A new window opened, displaying her own code, clean, concise, and lethally effective. It was like watching a surgeon perform a delicate operation. She wasn't just patching a hole, she was fortifying the entire structure from the inside out. With a final, decisive keystroke, she neutralized the attack. The crimson warnings vanished, replaced by a stable, healthy green. The progress bar on the main screen, the one that had been frozen at 99%, flashed and then completed its journey. Transfer complete. The $3 billion were secure. A collective sigh of relief washed through the room. The tension broke, replaced by stunned admiration. Jinwoo's men looked from the screen to Nia, their expressions a mixture of awe and confusion. Who was this woman? Where had she come from? Jinwoo's face remained impassive, but a storm of thoughts raged behind his eyes. She hadn't just saved his money, she had saved his reputation, his very empire. She had done in minutes what his highly paid CTO had declared impossible. His gaze fell upon Minjun, and the arrogant technologist visibly flinched, the color draining from his face. The authority figure had witnessed both his failure and his replacement. The gatekeeper had been summarily humbled. But Jinwoo's attention quickly returned to Nia. She was leaning back slightly, rolling her shoulders as if releasing a long-held tension. There was no look of triumph on her face, only a quiet, profound satisfaction. The phoenix was rising from the ashes, and the fire in her eyes was burning brighter than all the glittering lights of Manhattan. The immediate crisis was over, but a new, more personal one was just beginning. Jin-woo dismissed his men with a curt nod, leaving only himself, Mr. Park, and a visibly shaken Min-jun in the room with Nia. The celebratory atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a heavy, expectant silence. Nia stood by the terminal, her hands clasped behind her back, her composure a stark contrast to the turmoil she felt inside. She had done it. She had stepped back into the world she had forsaken, and the power of it, the familiar thrill of creation and control, was intoxicating. But with that came the fear. She had revealed her hand, and now she was at the mercy of a man known for his ruthlessness. Jin-woo walked slowly towards her, circling her as a predator might assess its prey. He stopped in front of her, his proximity unnerving. He was taller than she had realized, his presence commanding. For the first time, she felt a tremor of physical intimidation, but she refused to let it show in her eyes. "You have a name?" he asked, his voice a low baritone that seemed to vibrate in the air between them. "Nia," she replied, her own voice steady. "Just Nia, that was no ordinary hack, just Nia," Jin-woo stated, his gaze boring into hers. "That was personal. The system you just dismantled, you knew it wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact." He was as perceptive in the boardroom as she was in the digital world. He had seen the familiarity in her movements, the intuitive understanding she possessed. He was piecing together the mystery. A flashback ignited in Nia's mind, the memory of Marcus Thorne's voice, dripping with condescending praise. "You're a brilliant girl, Amara," he had said, using her real name, a name she had since discarded. "But you're just not ready for the spotlight. Let me guide you." He had guided her right out of her own life's work. The memory fueled her resolve. She met Jin-woo's gaze without blinking. "The code was a corrupted version of a security system I designed 7 years ago. It was stolen from me." The admission hung in the air, a shocking fact that recontextualized everything. She was not just a talented coder. She was a victim, an underdog with a score to settle. Mr. Park's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He looked at Jin-woo, a silent communication passing between them. This changed everything. Jin-woo's expression remained unreadable, but a new light entered his eyes. Understanding. He recognized the narrative, the sting of betrayal, the drive for revenge. It was a language he knew well. It was the story of his own rise to power. His cold, authoritative demeanor began to thaw, replaced by a burgeoning sense of protection, an unexpected kinship with this brilliant, overlooked woman. "Who stole it?" he asked, his voice softer now, yet carrying a new and dangerous edge. "Marcus Thorne," Nia said, the name tasting like poison on her tongue. A flicker of recognition crossed Jin-woo's face.
Thorne.
The CEO of a rival tech conglomerate, a man whose ambition was matched only by his lack of scruples. The pieces were falling into place. The attack wasn't random. It was a targeted strike from a known enemy, a master villain using a stolen weapon. And the woman who had forged that weapon was standing right in front of him. In that moment, Nia ceased to be just a waitress or a coder. She became the key to his victory, and the key to her own vengeance. A dangerous proposition settled in the air between them, thick with the scent of ozone after a lightning strike. Jin-woo didn't offer her a job. What he offered was far more significant, far more binding. He offered her a war. "Marcus Thorne is a problem," he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "He has been a thorn in my side for over a year, attempting to infiltrate my legitimate businesses." This attack was his most audacious move yet. He believed he was untouchable, that his digital ghost was the perfect weapon. He paused, his dark eyes searching hers, seeing the years of pain and anger she had kept locked away. He was wrong. His perfect weapon has a name. "And she is standing in my dining room." The transition from waitress to weapon was jarring, yet exhilarating. It was a validation of the power she had so long denied. Mr. Park, ever the voice of reason, stepped forward. Mr. Kwan, perhaps we should be more cautious. We know nothing about this woman. Jinwoo waved a dismissive hand, his gaze never leaving Nia. I know everything I need to know. I know she possesses a skill that men like Minjun. He shot a withering glare at his disgraced CTO, who shrank under the weight of it, can only dream of. I know she has a motive that money cannot buy, revenge. And I know that my enemy's enemy is my most valuable asset. He turned his full attention back to Nia. I will give you everything you need. Unlimited resources. A team. A new life. Anything you require to build a key to dismantle Thorn's empire, piece by piece. In return, you will give me your loyalty and your genius. We will have our revenge. Together, the offer was a double-edged sword. To accept was to step into his world, a world of violence, crime, and immense power. But to refuse was to condemn herself to a lifetime of silent, simmering regret, of serving coffee to men who would never know she was their superior in every way that mattered. The choice was not a choice at all. It was a reclamation. I don't want a new life, Nia said, her voice ringing with newfound strength. I want my old one back. I want my name, the one he stole from me, cleared. I want the world to know that the code that built his empire and the code that will tear it down came from me. A slow, predatory smile touched Jinwoo's lips for the first time. It transformed his handsome features, making him look both dangerous and impossibly charismatic. He saw the warrior in her, the queen ready to claim her throne. Then we have an accord, he declared. He extended a hand. It was not a gesture of a boss to an employee, but of one sovereign power to another. Nia looked at his outstretched hand, then back to his face. She saw not a cold monster, but a man who understood the savage poetry of retribution. She placed her hand in his. His grip was firm, warm, and in that contact, an unbreakable alliance was forged. A man who had lost his family and built an empire from their ashes, and a woman who had lost her name and was about to build a legend from its ruins. The Elysian penthouse, once a symbol of a world she served but could never enter, became her sanctuary and her command center. One of the opulent guest suites, with a view of the entire city, was converted into a state-of-the-art tech lab. The finest wine glasses were replaced with servers humming with immense power, the silk sheets with blueprints of digital architecture. Nia shed the waitress uniform like a second skin, a relic of a past life. Jinwoo provided her with a wardrobe befitting her new station, but she worked in simple, comfortable clothes, her focus entirely on the screens that were her new kingdom. For days, she barely slept, fueled by coffee and a 7-year-old hunger for justice. She moved like a phantom through the penthouse, a ghost in Jinwoo's machine, and he found himself watching her, fascinated. He would find her at 3 a.m., bathed in the blue glow of her monitors, her expression a mixture of intense concentration and creative joy. He started leaving meals for her by the door to her lab, knowing she would forget to eat. He would watch her for a moment unseen as she worked, and a feeling he couldn't quite name, a potent mix of admiration and a fierce, instinctual protectiveness, began to take root in his chest. One night, he entered the lab with 2 cups of tea. The silence was comfortable, broken only by the clicking of her keyboard. You never stop, he observed, his voice softer than she was used to. She took the cup without looking away from the screen. He never stopped when he was erasing me. Now I'm erasing him. There was no malice in her voice, only a chilling, factual finality. She finally turned to look at him, her eyes tired but burning with an inner fire. Why do you trust me? You don't know me. Jinwoo leaned against the doorframe, the city lights creating a halo around his silhouette. My father was betrayed by his most trusted partner, he said, the admission quiet, unexpected. He lost everything. Our family name, our fortune. I was a teenager, and I watched it destroy him. I spent the next 15 years hunting that man down and taking back what was ours, tenfold. I know what betrayal looks like. And I know what the hunger for retribution feels like. It's the purest motivation on earth. In that moment of shared vulnerability, the dynamic between them shifted. She saw past the ruthless Mafia boss to the boy who had his world stolen, just as she had. The powerful authority figure revealed the core of his own motivation, and it mirrored hers perfectly. An unspoken understanding flowed between them, a bond forged in the fires of past betrayals. Her fingers paused on the keyboard. "My name," she said softly, "is Amara Okafor." She had not spoken her real name aloud in 7 years. Saying it to him felt like taking her first breath after drowning. He nodded slowly, committing the name to memory. "Amara," he repeated, "the name of vow." It was the name of the woman he would help restore, and the woman he was, against all logic, beginning to fall for. The plan was audacious, a masterpiece of digital warfare and psychological manipulation. Amara, as she was now known to Jin Woo and his inner circle, had not just found a weakness in Marcus Thorne's network, she had found the ghost of her own genius, twisted and repurposed for his gain. Thorne had integrated her stolen security protocol, now rebranded as Aegis, into every facet of his company, Thorne Industries. It was his crown jewel, the very foundation of his reputation as a tech visionary. And Amara knew, with the intimate knowledge of a creator, that the backdoors she had built into her original design, fail-safes she had created for maintenance and recovery, were still there, dormant and waiting. Thorne, in his arrogance, had never found them. "He's hosting the Aegis Summit next week," Amara explained, pointing to a holographic projection of a sleek, modern convention center. "He's unveiling Aegis 20 to the world's top investors and government agencies. It's his coronation." Jin Woo looked at the projection, then at her. "And we're going to crash the party." A rare, genuine smile touched her lips. "We're not just going to crash it. We're going to burn it to the ground, digitally. While he's on stage, extolling the virtues of his unbreachable system, I'm going to breach it. Not with a cannonball, but with a whisper." Her plan was twofold. The first phase was infiltration. Mr. Park, using his extensive network, secured them invitations to the summit's exclusive pre-gala. Amara would go as Jin Woo's tech consultant. The night of the gala arrived, a storm brewing over the Hudson River. Amara stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, looking at her reflection. The woman staring back was a stranger. She wore a stunning, midnight blue gown that shimmered like a star-filled sky. Her hair was styled elegantly, and a simple diamond necklace, a gift from Jin Woo, left on her desk with a note that simply said for Amara, rested against her collarbone. When Jin Woo entered the room, he stopped dead in his tracks. He had only ever seen her in a waitress uniform or simple work clothes. Seeing her like this, transformed into a vision of breathtaking elegance, struck him with the force of a physical blow. He realized with startling clarity that his feelings for her had deepened far beyond admiration for her skills. This was something more, something dangerous and profound. "You look," he started, his voice rough with an emotion he couldn't hide, "like you were born to command rooms like this." She turned, and their eyes met. The electricity between them was palpable. "Tonight, I'm just the support team," she said softly. He closed the distance between them, his hand coming up to gently cup her cheek. His touch was electric, sending a shiver through her. "You are never just anything, Amara," he murmured, his gaze intense. "Tonight, we take the first step. And I will be with you for all the ones that follow." The promise was a shield, his presence a fortress around her heart. In the heart of the enemy's territory, under the glittering chandeliers and watchful eyes of their target, their partnership was about to be tested, and their burgeoning romance solidified by the shared thrill of the fight. The Aegis Summit pre-gala was a symphony of manufactured success. Champagne flowed, conversation buzzed with billion-dollar buzzwords, and at the center of it all was Marcus Thorne, preening like a king in his court. He was charismatic, handsome, and utterly oblivious to the storm about to break over his head. Amara and Jin Woo moved through the crowd with a quiet, predatory grace. To everyone else, they were simply another power couple, a formidable businessman and his brilliant, beautiful consultant. But beneath the surface, their senses were heightened, their purpose singular. Amara's gloved hand held a sleek, custom-designed clutch. It looked like a fashion accessory, but it was a sophisticated network scanner, mapping the convention center's internal servers. "He's running a closed network, completely air-gapped from the outside," she whispered to Jinwoo, her lips close to his ear, the intimacy of the act a stark contrast to their technical subject. "But the presentation mainframe has to interface with the stage projectors." "That's our way," and Jinwoo's hand rested on the small of her back, a gesture that was both possessive and protective. "Where is it?" "Server room. Sublevel 2, she murmured back. "And it's guarded." Their eyes met Thorne's from across the room. He gave them a cursory, dismissive glance, his gaze lingering for a moment too long on Amara, the way a collector appraises a new object before turning away. The casual arrogance of it made Amara's blood run cold, but Jinwoo's grip on her back tightened, a silent reassurance. The plan was in motion. Jinwoo created a subtle diversion, drawing Thorne and his security chief into a seemingly urgent conversation about a potential hostile investment from an Asian competitor, a fiction crafted by Mr. Park. All eyes were on them. In that window, Amara slipped away, her movements swift and silent. She moved through the service corridors, the glamour of the gala replaced by the cold, sterile hum of machinery. She reached the server room, a single guard posted outside. Before he could react, Mr. Park, appearing from the shadows like a seasoned ghost, neutralized him with a quick, silent efficiency that spoke of a past far removed from a simple consigliere. Amara swiped a cloned keycard, and the door hissed open. Inside, she connected a small device, no bigger than a thumbnail, to the mainframe. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of fear and exhilaration. She was planting a seed, a digital time bomb of her own creation, right in the heart of the system he had stolen from her. The program uploaded in seconds. She disconnected, slipped the device back into her clutch, and melted back into the shadows of the corridor. She re-emerged into the glittering ballroom just as Jinwoo was ending his conversation. He saw her across the room, and she gave him a nearly imperceptible nod.
It was done.
As she rejoined him, he took her hand, his fingers lacing with hers. The contact was a grounding force, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. The first strike had been landed. The trap was now set. All that was left was for Marcus Thorne to step onto a stage and, in front of the entire world, spring it himself. The main auditorium was packed. Global media, tech billionaires, and government contractors filled every seat, their attention fixed on the massive stage where Marcus Thorne stood, bathed in a triumphant spotlight. The Aegis 20 logo glowed behind him. He was at the apex of his power, the master of his universe. In a darkened control booth high above the crowd, Amara sat before a terminal, her fingers poised over the keyboard. Jinwoo stood behind her, a silent guardian, his eyes fixed on the man on the stage. Aegis 20 is more than a security system, Thorne announced, his voice booming through the speakers. It is a promise of absolute invulnerability. A digital fortress so perfect, so intelligent, it is not merely unbreakable, it is unthinkable to even try. It was Amara's cue. "Showtime," she whispered. With a single keystroke, she activated the seed she had planted. On the massive screen behind Thorne, the sleek corporate logo began to glitch. The image fractured, dissolving not into static, but into lines of elegant, flowing code. The crowd murmured in confusion. Thorne's confident smile faltered. "A minor technical issue," he stammered, but his eyes darted nervously towards the frantic technicians in the wings. Then, the code resolved itself into an image, a photo of a much younger Amara, a brilliant, hopeful 21-year-old, standing in front of a whiteboard covered in the foundational algorithms for the original Aegis system. Her name, Amara Okafor, appeared below it in bold, white letters. A recorded audio file began to play over the auditorium speakers, a conversation secretly recorded years ago, of Thorne condescendingly telling Amara her work was good, but that he would take it from here, for her own good. The evidence was irrefutable, a digital ghost rising from the past to claim its due. The screen split, one side showing Thorne's corporate accounts, the other showing a live, rapid decryption of his illegal financial dealings, slush funds, and corporate espionage, all of which had been protected by her stolen code. The fortress was not just breached, its secrets were being laid bare for the world to see. Thorne's face drained of all color. He was ruined, publicly and professionally, in the span of 90 seconds. Panic erupted. As security rushed the stage, Jinwoo's men, already in position, created a seamless path for them to exit. In the ensuing chaos, no one noticed them leave. Back in the sanctuary of the penthouse, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a profound, earth-shattering sense of release. Amara stood by the window, watching the city lights, no longer indifferent, but witnesses to her victory. She had done it. She had taken back her name, her legacy. Jinwoo came to stand beside her. The silence was filled with everything they had been through. He gently took her hand. "It's over," he said softly. She turned to face him, her eyes shining with unshed tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming triumph and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion as he raised his other hand to her face, his thumb gently stroking her cheek. "I did." He leaned in and kissed her. It was not a kiss of passion or conquest, but of profound connection, of two broken souls who had found their other half in the crucible of revenge. It was a promise of a new beginning, built on the ashes of their pasts. The underdog hero had not only won the battle, she had won the heart of the king, and in doing so, had become a queen. Together, they looked out at the city, no longer just as empire or her hiding place, but their future, glittering with infinite possibility.